Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. This is episode number 65 of the weekly podcast called Hooked on Wooden Boats. I am your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan. If he can't do it, well, we'll find somebody that can. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden boats all over the world, in the universe, and other galaxies as they exist. Welcome to the show today, folks. I'm sitting at my favorite recording spot, which is my car at Bayview State Park in Washington State. It's a balmy 43 degrees Fahrenheit out. Not raining though, so it's not too bad. And I have my fleece-lined jeans on, so I am keeping nice and toasty in the car. Anyway, it's great to have you on the show today. We've got a lot of fun stuff planned. I was going to bust into a verse of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," but I don't know. I haven't been practicing, so maybe I'll come back to that later. Today's featured segment is an interview with Jeff Hammond of the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building. Jeff has been an instructor there for, I believe, about 27 years. A very dedicated, talented guy, so you're going to want to stick around for that interview. This past week, I worked on my canoe a whopping 2.5 hours, and what I was doing was sanding the second coat of pre-coat primer on the hull of the boat. I should have that all sanded off in about another 30 minutes of work, and then I would be able to actually put the Interlux Bright Side top coat paint on the bottom of the boat. It seems odd to put top coat paint on the bottom of a boat, but actually it works fine in a small boat because it's not in the water all the time. If you were going to have a submerged boat, not submerged, but a boat, maybe your boat is submerged, I don't know. Oh boy, okay, get back on track here. If you have a boat that stays in the water year-round or most of the year, then obviously you want to have a bottom paint on your boat. So I got some more done on the canoe, and I'm cranking away on it. I'm going to try to get it done here as soon as possible. Oh my goodness, the finishing takes a lot of time. Anyway, last Friday I went down to Seattle and spent most of the morning and part of the afternoon down there at the Center for Wooden Boats. Did 3 interviews. Had a blast doing it. I interviewed Dan Leach, Diana Hennick, and Tyson Trudell. All have great life stories and fun stuff about how they got into this wooden boat gig and why they like it, and what the Center for Wooden Boats is up to. So you're going to want to stick around for those interviews in the coming weeks. Also connected with Nat Howe of the Northwest Seaport, who was working on the Arthur Tug Foss, which is a 120-foot tugboat built in 1889 in Portland, Oregon, I believe. It was part of the gold rush, whenever that was, maybe the 30s. And also was part of World War II history. Really cool boat. I had a great chat with Nat, so that's going to be on an upcoming interview also. I love doing these interviews. It's really fun. I did 4 interviews that day, and I was tired by the end of the day. I got to be honest. It takes energy and concentration to do the interviews, but once I get rolling on them, it just comes like clockwork, so I love it. Okay, the wooden boat hack of the week. This is hack number 10. And as you recall, last week we changed the name from the wooden boat tip of the week to the wooden boat hack of the week. Because a hack is kind of a better way to do something, a shortcut, something more efficient, It's worth, kind of energizing yourself to save some time and so on. So this tip is, or hack, I guess, is to use your tools ambidextrously. So there's a couple of reasons for this, and I've kind of thought of this recently because, I'm 58 years old, and over the years I've had a couple shoulder surgeries on the right side, not on the left side. So recently I was getting a little right side shoulder pain. I'd been doing a lot of sanding on my boat, so I switched to the left side with my sanding block, and it feels kind of weird, to be honest, because your brain has to work a little differently, but I was actually giving a little relief to my right shoulder. So I would encourage you to, even if you're a young guy or gal, maybe you're 15, 20, 25 years old, if you learn to work with both sides of your body, both of your arms, and so on, with your power tools or your hand tools, it's going to do several things. First of all, it's going to make your brain work harder. It really does. It makes you think a little differently because you use a different part of your brain. In fact, I remember probably 15 years ago when I was having problems with my right-hand shoulder, I was playing racquetball a lot. And I came to play my buddy one day, and I told him, Tom, I've got some bad news and some good news. The good news is we get to play today. The bad news is we're going to play left-handed because we were both right-handed. So we started playing left-handed, and probably took us maybe 6 or 9 months until we became as good left-handed as right-handed. It was really amazing because we just gave up the right hand completely for racquetball. And by golly, at first it was really awkward and funny, but after a while we got pretty decent. So I entered the World Championship of racquetball that year, actually as a popcorn vendor. No, I'm just kidding. I was never that good. So anyway, use your tools ambidextrously. It works your brain in a different way. It's going to help save some of your body parts so they last longer. I mean, if you think about it, for people that are right-handed, for instance, the right side of your body is probably a little more muscular, and it's probably going to wear out a little sooner. So why not use the left side, or vice versa? Okay, I'd like to give a shout out to our new subscribers this week, Joel Vanderweel. And according to Joel's email address, he works at Deloitte, which is a CPA consulting firm, and I used to work there years ago, back in the 70s. So welcome to the show, Joel, to my e-news subscription list, and also to Mike Orr. If you would like to subscribe to my monthly e-newsletter, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. Again, that's hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. Next up is a question that was left on my voicemail feedback hotline by Brian Hansen. In case you're wondering, you can leave a message on my voicemail, 424-261-2360, or directly from your computer. You can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail, and if you have a microphone on your computer, you can record a message for me there. Brian is a friend of mine, lives in Everett, Washington. Well, he doesn't live, he works in Everett, Washington, lives in Stanwood. And now that I've violated his privacy, I am going to play his voicemail. So take it away, Brian.
Hey, Dan. It's Brian Hampton. And because it's my birthday today, I know that you know that already because Sam already told me that the scamp you're going to be making, you're going to gift to me when you're done. And so that's an awesome birthday present. So thank you, and I will wait patiently for that. Hey, serious question though. I'm just curious, what does it look like for all the students who go to the school out there at Port Townsend? What's it look like to be a shipwright? What's life like for people who go to school? And then, I mean, can they support a family, or do you gotta, be a computer programmer on the side and make enough money doing real work so you can go out and do that, or do you really make a decent living at it? Anyway, just curious. curious. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for that message, Brian, and the question. And so I had some answers floating around in my head to that question, but I thought, it'd be best to get somebody from the boat school to answer this. So I emailed Katie Whalen over to school, and she wrote back, and here's what she had to say. Hello, Dan. Brian's question about what the opportunities are for our graduates has been asked before, and I am happy to provide an answer. Our students spend 9 to 12 months with us immersed in learning a trade that to the outside world may seem enigmatic. But as you know from your insider's perspective, the world of wooden boats is vibrant and thriving. Our school attracts a diverse group of people with a variety of intentions. Although not all of our students attend the programs with the goal of working full-time in the marine trades, those who do seek employment find work in boatyards, maritime museums, on tall ships, small independent boat shops, large yacht manufacturers, as educators, and many start their own businesses. Some of our graduates branch out and use the skills they acquired at our school to become fine furniture makers, instrument makers, and finish carpenters. The skill set we teach is quite transferable to all types of fine woodworking. The thread that binds our diverse student body is their desire to become makers and to craft their own unique lives working with wood and tools and skilled hands. Wooden boats have been around for thousands of years, and the folks that build and fix them have developed a time-honored trade. Unfortunately, unless you live by a working waterfront, most people have not had the opportunity to see boat builders and shipwrights in action. So it can be difficult for them to imagine what life as a boat school student and a working shipwright looks like, or what their prospects are. I would like to extend an invitation to Brian and to all of your listeners to come for a tour of our campus and to see our students and our world-class instructors in action. They can also visit the many local maritime businesses owned and staffed by our own trained graduates. I would encourage anyone interested in finding out what life as a shipwright is like to step into our world for an hour or an afternoon. As you already know, it's a wonderful life. Best to you, Katie Whalen. Thanks for that great answer, Katie. I really appreciate that. So there you go, Brian. Lots of opportunities. The school loves to have visitors. Guys that go through the school end up doing all kinds of cool stuff and has very transferable skills to other areas too. So thanks again, Katie, for that answer. We are going to move on to the interview now with Jeff Hammond of the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building. Take it away, Jeff. It is November 16th, 2012. I'm sitting with Jeff Hammond, an instructor, and we are at the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building in Port Hadlock, Washington. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Jeff, you've been here at the school for 25 years?
27 years.
27 years.
Yep.
Wow, very cool. Very cool. Before we talk about the school, though, I'd like to talk about, have you talk about where you grew up and when you started getting into boating and what your youth was like.
Okay. Well, I grew up in southeast Wisconsin. I was actually born in northern Wisconsin, just north of Green Bay.
Sounds cold.
It was cold, yeah. It was cold even where I grew up. It was plenty cold. And, I started fooling around with boats as models when I was a kid. I left Wisconsin in 1985 and came here. I got out of the construction business. I built houses and cabinets and
Back in Wisconsin?
Back in Wisconsin.
Okay.
All kinds of crazy things back there. And it was a tough place to have that kind of business and be brand new in it. And I struggled with it through a very bad recession early on. And the reason I got interested in boats again, after leaving it for a number of years, was that I basically got kind of discouraged by the whole scene there, and I wanted to build a boat get out of Dodge.
Okay.
That's my whole purpose once I decided to leave. Yeah.
So did you do boating as a kid back in Wisconsin with your family?
A little bit. We did
some boats.
Did a little bit. We did some canoeing. We had a little family canoe that my parents somehow scrounged the money together for. Mm-hmm. My dad was a teacher. He was actually a guidance counselor, and of course they didn't pay teachers very well then. So it was always a struggle, but we did some canoeing, and I did some other boating in a variety of lakes back there. Nothing like what happens around here, of course.
Right.
That was my experience. All I knew when I was 30 years old is that I wanted to leave.
Mm-hmm. When you were 30, you say?
When I was about 30, I moved here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you pick this area to move to?
I picked this area. Well, let me go back a little bit. When I came out here to kind of check out the atmosphere, I guess. Not the. It was more the business atmosphere.
For construction.
For construction, yeah. I thought maybe I'd get back into it once I got out here. And when I was here, I had been fooling around with boats. For a couple of years before I...
Building boats, or?
Well, starting to build boats, yes.
Okay.
I was still in Wisconsin, and when I came out here to visit, I mentioned that to the gal that I was visiting, and she said, well, we have to go up to Port Townsend then, because there's a place you have to see. And
so you were in Seattle.
I was in Seattle
area.
Yeah.
Okay. And your friend says we got to go to Port Townsend.
Yeah, an old schoolmate said, "Yeah, we have to go to Port Townsend. We have to see this, and we have to stop at the Chimicum Cafe and have breakfast." And so we came up to do that. And she was building a house with her husband at the time in Squim. So we made a big round trip. Came to the school. Looked around a little bit.
Which was here. This was where. No, it was up in Port Townsend.
Yeah, the school was
the industrial area.
Was in the industrial park at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And so I went and visited, and not too many more weeks passed, and I was here.
Wow. So what year did you visit the school?
I visited in December of 1984, and. I knew the minute I left the school that day that I visited that I was coming back.
Really? Now, did you meet the Prothros at that time?
Yes, I didn't actually meet Bob Prothero at the time. I saw him. I got a tour by one of the gals in the office at the time. It was a very brief tour, so I didn't really meet Bob at that time. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But went home, started getting my stuff together.
Did you talk to them at that time about being employed at the school, about teaching or attending the school?
I came as a student. I came as a student, yes.
Okay.
I enrolled as a student. I started, I believe, that's a long time ago, on April, the first week in April. I came the last week in March of 1985. Yeah.
So you moved out here to Port Townsend and started school.
Yep. And after 6 months, I decided I wanted to stay another 6, and I did that. Plus, Bob hired me at that point in time to work at the school. So I was kind of a student and an employee at the same time. It was kind of a strange situation, but
what kind of work were you doing at the school then?
I was doing all the things that needed to be done around the shop. I worked on boats, and I worked with students. I did some instructing. I mostly did things around. There was a brand new shop at the time. It was barely moved into, and so there were lots of things around the shop that needed to be attended to.
What year did the school start?
The school started in late 80, early 1981. Okay. But its original location was down right in the port, right in the port of Port Townsend. There were 3 buildings there. That was before my time.
Yeah.
And they had relocated out to Glen Cove Industrial Park about a year before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was still a brand new building.
Yeah.
There wasn't some of the kind of safety things that you would expect to find in buildings now, like guardrails on the staircase and things like that. So I did all kinds of crazy things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were a student and an employee at the same time?
Yes. Yep.
So who were some of the other instructors at that time, Jeff?
There was an instructor. Bob was the main guy, of course. And
Bob Prothero, who was a shipwright in Seattle with his brother Frank for many years, right?
For many years, yes. Yeah. And Frank outlived Bob by almost 20 years.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, Frank just died a few years back.
Yeah.
So the other instructor at the time, there was just one other instructor, this guy named Russell, and he was actually had been a rancher from Central Oregon, and he was quite good, quite a good teacher and craftsman. And Bob knew that he was getting old, and he was pretty unhealthy at the time. So he was, searching for somebody to kind of take under his wing,
so he was the main instructor. You were kind of an assistant instructor at that time?
Yep, that's right.
And that was it?
That was it, yeah.
How many students were there at the school at that time?
When I enrolled, we enrolled students every month.
Oh.
I enrolled with a class of 9 people. In the previous, that meant that there were 5 previous classes to me that were still in session. 5.
I see.
So there were about right around 30 students at the time total.
Okay.
And at the time I started with 9 students. That was the largest class that had ever started.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I have some contact with
those
about half of those guys.
Really?
Yeah, some of them have fallen through the cracks, and I haven't seen for a while, but I still do see a few of them.
Yeah. Okay. So, so how long did you actually, or when did you make the transition to being a full-time teacher then at the school?
Well, I actually left school for a brief period of time after my year was up, and for a very brief period of time, it was about 5 or 6 weeks, and then Russell, the other instructor, left, and Bob asked me to come back.
Okay.
Which I couldn't wait to do, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
You were loving it at that point.
Oh yeah. It was all very much a thrill for me. The fact that I got to work every day with all this beautiful wood and work on these boats, these beautiful pieces of craftsmanship. I was thrilled to come back. I was thrilled to come here to begin with. I really did not want to leave when I left, but I had to.
Where did you go for that brief time?
I very briefly got back into the construction business.
In this area?
In this area, yeah. I'm actually mostly doing cabinet work. I did a few jobs for a few of the local contractors, and like I said, when I got the chance to come back to school, I dropped everything and went back to school. So,
yeah. So you went back to the schools. Well, what kind of boats were you building in those days in the 80s at the school?
Well, we always had a variety of projects. We had some repair work. At the time, the school wasn't as program-wise wasn't as broken up as it is. Right now, we have 3 separate programs. We have a large craft, small craft, and contemporary boat building programs. At the time, it was just a giant, homogeneous program, and whatever came around is what you did. You might be doing repair work one day, and the next day you might be working a little bit on a new, a couple planks for a new lap straight boat.
Yeah.
And maybe a week later you might be, beginning a backbone for a bit larger boat. So you got a little bit of chance to do everything. That's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Driven by the desire for our students to want to do one thing or the other. A lot of the older guys, especially, didn't really want to work on the big boats. They wanted to work on the little boats. They figured that's what they could do. They didn't want to handle 400, 500, 600 pound timbers, but they'd be happy to deal with 12, 14 foot long planks and maybe maximum 50 pound something or another.
Right.
And so it was way different back then. In the early days, or my early days at the school.
So were they building small boats start to finish and big boats?
Sure, small boats start to finish, big boats start to finish.
What were some examples of some of the boats that they built?
One of the first boats that I worked on was a little steam launch.
Really?
It actually wasn't steam powered, however. It was modeled after a steam launch.
Okay.
It was basically drawn up by Bob and one of the more advanced students, and to look like a steam launch. It had a stack like a steam launch in the whole 9 yards, but it had a little diesel engine in it.
Oh, really?
So it was very Northwest style bow, kind of plumb stem. Very Northwest style house on it, full stand-up house in it, and a very fancy turned. It was a kind of a little show boat.
The Carvel plank.
It was Carvel planked.
Yeah.
It was about. It wasn't very big. It was only maybe 24 feet long, 23, 24 feet long. It wasn't a big boat. A lot of detail in it, though. Lots of the house itself was a tremendous amount of detail, and there were lots of embellishments on that.
Really?
So turn posts and some kind of fancy work.
So was that boat sold when it was finished?
It was actually commissioned.
It was a commission.
It was a commission boat.
Yeah.
At that period of time, and actually most of the time here at school, we prefer to have a commission.
Yeah. Right.
So.
So what kind of materials went into that boat? Wood species? What was
very, very common materials for the Northwest here. Douglas fir, backbone, red cedar planking, white oak frames.
Steam bent frames?
Steam bent frames, yes. It was a round hull with steam bent frames. Fairly lightly built.
How was it fastened? How were the planks fastened?
It was all galvanized fastened.
Galvanized nails?
Galvanized nails, yes.
Really?
As a student, at that point in time, galvanized fasteners were still the preferred fastener. We didn't use or seldom used bronze. We seldom used screws, only a few screws in the hull here and there, mostly all galvanized nails for the planking, galvanized bolts for the backbone, hot dip galvanized everything, because Bob was a workboat guy. He, even though we were building this little launch, especially was a kind of a show yacht. It was still built workboat style. And workboat style meant galvanized fasteners and other basic materials like that. So
do those eventually disintegrate or corrode, or if a boat's kept dry, do those work fine?
It's not a matter of being wet or dry. The galvanized fastener of that period of time and previous to that is a little different than the galvanized fastener, I believe, that's being used now. When Bob built boats, he expected the boat to work, and would only have a life of maybe 40 years. 40 years, it was used up.
Oh.
So there was no point in putting fasteners that would live 2, 3, 4 times that long.
I see.
Anyways, the galvanized fasteners, if they're properly installed and properly protected when they're installed, will live a good 40 years plus.
I see.
Now, the galvanized fastener from 40, 50 years ago probably is a different fastener than you would find today. It's a different kind of steel. The base metal is more than likely a little different.
Yeah. Right.
And that's probably contributing to the kind of the downfall, if you will, of the use of galvanized fasteners. Is you have galvanic problems with metal that is basically kind of an alloy. The base metal steel. It's got some other trace elements in it that the old galvanized fasteners didn't, so they have galvanic corrosion problems.
Oh.
That they didn't have before.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just recently talked to somebody that had a T-bird that had been galvanized fastened, and they had problems with it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, nothing lasts forever. You're doing the you're building this little in some cases a piano finished piece of woodwork, and you're throwing it in one of the harshest environments that you can think of.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rain, sun, hot, cold, and these days in all kinds of who knows what kind of environment in the marina. And you can only expect them. It's amazing that they live as long as they do. Actually, consider
right.
So,
yeah.
I think people expect things to last too long. I
you?
really do. I mean, you buy a car, how long do you expect it to last?
Yeah,
it's not going to. You use it up. If you're using it, if it sits at the dock, if your boat sits at the dock all the time, it doesn't get used up. It just kind of sits there and kind of lollygags and. But if it's a working boat, even if it's a working boat on weekends when you go fishing or whatever, it works a little bit. It gets used up, and to expect things like this to last forever is asking too much, I think.
Yeah. Interesting. So so you worked with the Protheros, and how would you describe their style of boat, method of boat building? I mean, it was kind of a blend of different things. What was unique about that?
Well, Bob and Frank, when they worked together, kind of drew their knowledge from their family, first of all, and people that would come to work for them. They came from all over the country to the West Coast. This was the new place to come to, I guess. So they came from the East Coast. They came from Southeast Coast. They came from Canada. They came from several European countries, and over the couple of generations, they gleaned as many of what they considered to be the best techniques and so on that they saw.
Yeah.
And tried to employ them in their business.
Yeah.
And honestly, in Bob and Frank's business was primarily a repair business.
Oh, really?
They repaired in their years in business somewhere in the range of 12,000 boats.
Oh my goodness!
And
was that on Lake Union?
It was on Lake Union.
Okay.
And they only built really a little more than 200 boats from scratch. And some of them pretty good sized boats, working boats, fish boats.
Fish boats, yeah.
Maybe a tug or two.
Probably a lot of gill net boats.
Working boats, probably a lot of gill netters and seiners, and 200 boats. That's a lot of boats.
Yeah. How many year span was that?
That was probably in about a 30-year span, 30 to 40-year span.
Yeah.
Like I said, their primary business was repair, though. Keeping the fishing fleet, the working fleet, up and running. That was their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And it is the people that work in the yard now. That's their bread and butter as well. There's not that much new wooden boat building, especially today.
Yeah. Right. So. Anything real unique stand out as far as a method of boat building that you guys still use here at the school that kind of came down from the Protheros?
Well, their method of boat building was really kind of centered around using the lofting as much to their advantage as possible. The lofting of the boat, the full-size drawing of the boat. And with that, they left, fairly little to the imagination as far as how the boat was going to go together. They pretty much knew once the drawing was done, once the lofting was done, how it was all going to happen. They used that as much as possible. Yeah. There was very little fitting, for lack of a better word, that would happen in the process. It was as efficient a process as that could be, in that it used this drawing, this lofting, and that information could be relayed to the people in the shop very quickly, and a great bunch of craftspeople that worked with them, and they could build things very quickly and make a profit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about money. It's always all about money. It's, right. Unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. So, Bob Prothero was for his time, was a very wealthy guy because he was good at what he did. Bob and Frank, I should say, were very good at what they did. Mm-hmm. So,
and they were designing some of the boats they built. Is that right?
They would design them kind of on the law floor. There wasn't a whole lot of design work. I asked Frank one day about the plan for his Glory of the Seas boats, and he said, "I don't need no stinking plan." He says, "I just scratched it out on the floor. Never had a plan for it. He just drew it on the law floor, and he was kind of upset that I'd ask him why, that for a plan, because he didn't need the plan."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, one of the brothers designed and built Alcyone, right, which is still around, the schooner?
Yes, that was pretty much Frank as well. Yeah. Frank and his crew, say Frank built it in his backyard, but it was Frank and the guys from the shop.
Yeah. So he could design a workboat, a schooner, or whatever, and just draw it out on the floor. And
when Frank died, he was in the in the throes of building the Glory of the Seas, his big 65-foot schooner.
Really?
Initially, and then next to his barge at Lake Union Dry Dock.
Really?
And my understanding is, I don't know exactly where the boat is right now, but my understanding is that Frank's nephew took possession of the boat. And
did it get finished?
I don't know exactly what the status of it is. It was a big, expensive project. That when he started building it, material costs were relatively small.
Yeah.
So through inflation and everything, I'm sure that
it's get to be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes,
don't they?
Lots of money. There's a lot of teak in the boat, which nobody can afford anymore.
Really?
And lots and lots of embellishments. Carved corner posts and because Frank, he didn't sit very well. He came to the shop to his shop, that meaning the barge, practically until the day he died, because he just, he liked keeping busy.
That's what he was passionate about, too, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he built kits for a little 26-foot cutter boats just for fun, and he sold a bunch of those. He sold, about a dozen of those or so, I guess. And,
really?
Yeah.
Were any of his boats plywood construction?
No, there's very little plywood in the Prothero's vocabulary. Actually, they didn't really care much for plywood. Yeah.
More traditional materials.
Yeah, very traditional.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? What kind of boats do you like? Do you have some boats yourself? And
well, I've never had a big boat myself. The biggest boat I ever owned was a folk boat. I had a folk boat back in the first few years that I lived here.
26 foot?
Yeah, 25 footer.
25
foot little folk boat. Nice little boat.
So a little lapstrake boat from Scandinavia.
A little lapstrake boat, yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually built in San Francisco, I believe, but it was.
Oh, really?
And I eventually sold that. I helped put my wife through graduate school, so things like that have to go by the wayside for a while.
Yeah, right.
But I've always had access to whatever boats I want to. So
okay.
So.
Do you have any boats now? Any small boats?
I have
yourself?
a pea pod.
Okay.
My wife and I have a pea pod,
which is a little double-ended lapstrake boat.
Little double-ended
12
lapstrake.
feet or something.
This is a pretty good size. This is about a 16-footer.
That's a big one.
It's a
sailboat.
It's a sailboat. It doesn't sail very well, but it is
Really?
a sailboat. Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't sail real well.
Okay.
It's more of a roll boat. It was a working boat in its day.
Okay.
The pea pod was a fishing boat.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Back on the East Coast.
Yep.
Right. So you've got that, and your wife's got a pygmy kayak.
And my wife's got a pygmy kayak. She had the desire to get out and row or kayak, paddle, and my desire was to get her out there as quickly as possible. So I wanted to buy her a boat. I wanted to buy her a kayak, but no, she wanted to, she wanted to keep it local. So she wanted to buy the pygmy.
Yeah.
To support the local businesses. She has children from other families that work there. So she wanted to, put her money into the local economy. So it took us way longer than it probably should have to put it together.
Really? Because that's a stitch and glue boat.
It's a stitch and glue. It's actually very nicely put together kit. It goes together very well, but between her schedule and mine, we always had a hard time getting it together. So, but it eventually got done, and she loves it. She's just, every time she takes it for a row, she comes home beaming.
And you had her paint the hole on it so you could see her. She told
That's
me
exactly
she wanted
right.
to varnish the hole. She said, "No, we're going to put yellow paint on there."
I wanted it to be yellow or something that you could see. Even the people at Pygmy kind of poo-pooed that idea. They prefer to see their kayaks varnished, but I wanted it to be very visible.
Yeah.
So
you've been here at the school for 27 years, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a tenure. And I'm assuming you still like what you do here.
Yeah.
What is it about this that you really like? What brings you to work every day?
Well, the main thing that brings me to work every day is the people I work with, the students especially, and the guy, the rest of the crew here. That's the regular crew at school, of course, too. But meeting a whole new group of interesting people, a new and interesting people every year is really pretty much what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're more interesting than others. But I meet some of the most incredible people, young and old, all walks of life. It's all mixed up here. It's great to see the young guys rub shoulders with the older guys, and it's great to see the influence that the older guys have on the younger guys. It's a really great mix.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better. They're good for each other. They're all good for each other, and hopefully we're good for them. We try to make it that way. As a school, we're good for. I hope we're good for everybody.
Yeah. I would think, unlike a community college or something like that, where people sometimes go to college because they don't know what else to do, the people that come here are maybe a little more intentional about what they want to do or the skills they want to learn. Is that true?
That's very true. We are what you would call, we are in many ways like a community college, but we are more of what you would call a destination school. We might teach to teach you the trades, teach to the skills that are needed by the community very much, but we don't just draw our students from the community. Our students come from all over the place.
All over the world.
All
right?
over the world, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes it interesting too. I mean, you get to meet people from all over the place. But and you're absolutely right. We don't have people coming here because they just don't know what else to do. They come here with a very definite mission in mind. You know, they most of them have a pretty good idea what they want to do with themselves when they get out. Some of them is they want to work in the trades. They know they want to do that. Some of them, just like I said before, they just want to build their own boat. They just want to get their hands on something. Very often I have students that
just want to work with their hands.
They want to work with their hands. They've been sitting behind a desk. They've been doing some job that they, learned to not like very much or whatever. They want to have the feeling that they've accomplished something with their own hands.
Yeah.
And that is a very satisfying thing for the vast majority of them to do once they realize that they can do it.
Right.
And for some of it's a little frustrating at first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
wow.
By and large, even the person that comes here with no experience leaves feeling fairly satisfied that they can do something.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
That's what it's all about. If I didn't feel like I could accomplish something like that with him, I would not bother to come to school. Not bother to come to work. That's what kind of keeps me going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, attending the school is on my bucket list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would love to attend here sometime. It's got to make sense financially and logistically.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely on my list. So I'm just curious if there's any projects over the years that come to mind as being really the most interesting or fascinating to you as far as boat builds that you've done or projects you've worked on?
Actually, some of the earliest projects that I worked on, because they were so, relatively new to my experience, were probably the most satisfying ones. I built a little schooner, little 37-foot schooner, design number 335, an Alden schooner.
Oh, really?
For one of my classmates, actually.
Wow.
A guy named Chris Lawless. He still has the boat down on Bainbridge Island, and he sailed it all over the Pacific.
Really fun.
That was a very satisfying project. The little steam launch, I didn't have a big hand in that, but that was very satisfying. I did some really neat stuff on that, some stuff that was very satisfying to do. Myself, as an instructor now, I don't get the chance to do a lot of that stuff anymore. I got to show other people how to do it. That's my job.
Yeah, right.
My job is not to build a boat per se. My job is to teach other people to build a boat. So.
Yeah. So, are you involved in several of the programs here, small and?
I'm mostly in the traditional end of the small and large craft. I
see.
am not much involved in the contemporary end of things.
Yeah. Okay. And what kind of projects or boats are you working on right now at the school, Jeff?
Right now, we are just really in the throes of the real early projects that are kind of introducing our students and stuff to tools. We're not really working on any boats right now. We will be in about 2 to 3 weeks. We'll start our skiffs.
Is that the Prothero skiff?
It'll be something like the Prothero skiff.
Yeah.
It might be a Prothero skiff.
Okay. Copper riveted lapstrake boat?
It could be a copper riveted lapstrake boat, or it could be just a flat bottom Carvel plank boat. We kind of have our choice. So
yeah.
And then we won't actually start building boats in either the large or small or contemporary program until in January.
I see. Okay.
And we've got some interesting projects. We've got some white halls to be built for. They're going to be a little bit strange, actually, but for the reenactment actually we're building the boats for the BBC for the reenactment of the Powell expedition down the Colorado River.
Really?
Yeah, 2 21-foot boats and an 18-foot boat. They're Whitehall's, basically totally inappropriate boats, but that's what they used. So that's
for that kind of water.
So we're going to build the boats to the best of our knowledge, the way they would have been built for that expedition. In the large craft, there's going to be building a pretty good sized catboat, a 22-foot catboat.
Wow.
It doesn't sound very big, but for a catboat, a 22-foot boat's a big boat.
They're a beamy boat, right?
Yeah, it'd be a 10 foot plus beam.
Yeah, almost half as wide as long. Yeah, that is a big boat.
And we're finishing up the sliver. The contemporary program is finishing up the sliver, the 62-foot day sailor. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful, beautiful boat, and the guys are doing a fantastic job on it. Actually, I've had very little to do with the boat myself. That's not. I
got to go up there and look at that. I haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So for people that are listening, Jeff, that maybe have an interest in attending the school, give us your best pitch for why they should come here. Okay.
Oh boy, I don't know if I you should only come here if you want to. That's for sure.
Right.
If you have a desire to work with your hands, learn some interesting ways to work with wood that you've never imagined. If you have a desire to build a boat or anything out of wood, really, this is a great place to come.
Because the skills you learn here are applicable to all kinds of construction.
They're transferable. Not so much to construction, well, just about everything, really. Yeah. They're transferable to a lot of different things.
Right.
In working with wood and just, craft in general. Building a wooden boat isn't just about working with wood. You need to know how to work with metal quite a bit. You have to be a little bit of an electrician. You have to be a little bit of a plumber. You have to be a rigger. You have to be, you have to have quite a large skill set to build a boat from start to finish. So there's always something new to learn.
Yeah,
that's what's really cool about it. And it very slowly, but it does evolve a little bit. The traditional wooden boat is still a traditional wooden boat, but there are occasionally some little improvements in how you might do things.
Yeah,
some way to make the boat more rot resistant, or.
So you're continually learning new things as an instructor, I would think, too.
Absolutely,
new ideas and tips.
Yeah.
And I learned something a couple of weeks ago. I was at a boat shop down in Gig Harbor at the Eden Boatyard, where the T-Bird originally was made. And I was in the shop there, and the guy had Tom Reagan from Great View Boat Works, I think it is. He had a wax toilet ring on his workbench, and he was putting his bronze screws in that to wax them before they go into the hull, so they go in his ear.
That's what I use, yeah.
It's like, okay, the light went off. Yeah. It's like, what a great idea.
Yeah,
it costs $1.50 or something.
That's exactly what I use.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just learned that. You've probably known that for years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's perfect.
Fun stuff material. Like that.
It's a perfect material. It's beeswax and a fungicide, and it's just like the perfect material. Yeah, it's soft and it's easy to get on.
I love learning stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes you'll learn from students. Some student will make some what appears to be a mistake, and it doesn't turn out to be a mistake at all. It's some brilliant way of doing something. It doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while some crazy thing will happen that it's like, holy man, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
So you learn from that kind of stuff too. So
very cool. Very cool. Well, I appreciate your time today, Jeff. Any parting comments for our listeners today?
Whatever you do, have fun. That's important.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Jeff, for taking the time to do that interview. It was a blast to sit down with you and talk about your life and your story and what got you into boats and all that stuff. And you guys have a really cool school there. And like I said before, my bucket list has one item on there that says attend the Northwest School of Wood and Boat Building. The fun thing, too, is Jeff he's about my age, and he's 50 somewhere, probably, I think. And he loves to mountain bike, which I do also. However, Jeff puts in a lot more miles than I do, so he's probably in a lot better condition. But anyway, best to you at the school, Jeff. I would appreciate it if you would connect with me. If you have feedback about the podcast that you'd like to leave, if you have questions about boat building or about interviews that I've done, or maybe people that you'd like to see interviewed, please connect with me. You can do so by email, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can subscribe to my e-newsletter, hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. You can leave comments on my website. As I've mentioned before, every week when I publish the podcast on Thursday, I also publish a blog with show notes about the podcast that week and pictures. So I would encourage you to go on there, and you can leave comments on the blog there. And there's a lot of great pictures on there. In fact, it's pretty cool because I got an email from Sail Magazine this week saying, hey, we'd like to purchase one of the pictures from your website to use for our magazine. So that was pretty awesome. It's a picture I took of a 1940 Imperial Atlas diesel engine that is in the tug Elmore that was built back in the late 1800s. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest if you look for Wooden Boat Dan. Voicemail feedback hotline is 424-261-2360. And also, if you'd like to leave a message directly from your computer or your smartphone, if you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail, that'll take you to a page where you can click the record button and leave a message from the microphone on your computer or your phone. So I'd love to get emails and messages from folks, so please connect when you have a moment. Well, it's Christmas time of year, and people are out buying stuff, and if you'd like to help support the show, if you use a couple links that I'll give you, you can make purchases at Amazon and Jamestown distributors, and I get paid a small commission. So the link that you would use for Amazon is hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon. That takes you to their homepage, I believe it is. And then if you make any purchase, I get paid a little bit. And then for Jamestown distributors, you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/JD. That's the initials JD. And if you go there and make a purchase, I get paid a little bit. Also, there's a store on my website at the top. If you click on store, that'll take you to my apparel store where there's t-shirts, hats. I was going to say gloves, but I don't think there's any gloves on there. Bumper stickers, coffee mugs, things like that with the Hooked on Wooden Boats logo, which is really, I think it's a really cool logo I had designed. So you can go there and make purchases, and I make a little bit there. Appreciate any support you'd like to send my way. The other thing I'll mention is on iTunes now, where my podcast is listed with all 64 or 65 episodes now. You can leave a review for the podcast, and so far I've got 22 5-star reviews, which is pretty sweet. If you've never built a wooden boat, it's high time you get out and do that. It's not that hard. It's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun. And I'm willing to help you along the way. If you have questions or comments, let me know. Yeah, go out and build something. And if you don't own something, borrow a wooden boat. Just get out on the water, have some fun with the wood. It's a great way to experience the water and experience craftsmanship and tradition. Keep the barnacled side down and the bright side up. This is Wooden Boat Dan, over and out. Have a great week. We'll talk again next week.